I'd like to talk a little bit about Lucy Marina as an introduction. I want to talk a little bit about the Matzav, the situation in Israel. I'd like to talk about how we deal with that, and hopefully we can tie it all up together by the end of it, and it will sound like it's one topic. Yitzhak Hashem. The Gemara says that Shalosh Ba'im Behesek Dat. Three things happen when you least expect. Mashiach, Metzia, V'Hakrav. Mashiach comes, you find a lost object, and it's sung by a scorpion. So I read this a few times in my life, and it was interesting, but didn't really follow what it meant. And then when our tragedy struck a year and a half ago, it was actually 6 months before October the 7th, or on April the 7th, I started to understand it. Three things change your life in an instant: a lost object, a scorpion, and a Mashiach. First of all, a lost object. A Metzia literally is a found object. And I found my lost object in Tikkun Leil Shavuot 1995 at Oxford University. I'd finished my studies, I was working, and a couple of my friends from Cambridge were studying maths degrees, PhDs in Oxford. And I went to stay with them for Yom Tov. And Lucy was head of the Jewish Society of the Hillel at the time, and she arranged the Tikkun Leil Shavuot. I met her, we played cards, I remember, because she was friendly with my friends there. And after those 2 days, I came back to London. I said to my grandmother, I've met the girl I'm going to marry. She went off to Japan for the year. We started going out when she came back. 6 months later, we were engaged, and 6 months later, we were married right at the end of her studies. She was my lost object, and she changed my life in the blink of an eye. Maya, my oldest child, for those of you who most of you who have had kids, you know that your first child changes your life in an instant. You're a couple, and then you take this baby away from the hospital, and suddenly you're two parents, and your life has changed, and you don't really understand how, but you then figure it out. So she changed my life in an instant, and Rena, the last conversation I remember having with her a week before the tragedy, she said, "Daddy, why are you not doing more for Am Yisrael?" Which I sort of, just took as a standard Rena type of expression until this happened, and then I quit my job, and now I've been traveling around. So she changed my life as well in the blink of an eye. So a Metzia can change, your life can change when something sort of clicks in an instant. A Krav, what's that Krav? Krav would have been the time of the Gemara, instant death. I was on kibbutz Ramat HaShofet, I'm about Shuva, so I was on a non-religious kibbutz at age 17. And I remember being in the cotton fields picking out weeds at 5 in the morning, and the kibbutznik was with us. He said, "If you're stung by a black scorpion," he said, "tell me immediately, I'll take you to the hospital." He said, "If you're stung by a yellow scorpion," he said, "count to 3. If you're still alive on 3, you weren't stung." So a scorpion is a very dangerous, deadly thing. It changes your life in an instant. The modern equivalent of a scorpion are 2 Hamas terrorists waiting in ambush with 2 Kalashnikovs and 20 bullets, and your life changes in an instant. So to quote Rabbi Akiva, Lahavdil, if I hadn't experienced my life change with a Metzia and with an Akrav, I wouldn't have believed that Mashiach could come in an instant. But now that I've experienced that, my life has changed with a found object and with a scorpion. Now I can also believe that the Mashiach can also come and change our lives in an instant. And I want to say, I think that on the 7th of October 2023, Mashiach came in an instant. And I want to elaborate on that as follows. See, 7th of October, Simchat Torah, was the worst tragedy that's happened to Jewish people in all of our lifetimes, and really on a par in some ways with the Shoah. Obviously, a scale not comparable to the Shoah, But at the time of the Shoah, the non-Jews in the world pretended they didn't know what was going on. And when it all came about publicly at the end of the war, that 6 million Jews had been exterminated, they pretended to be sad. This did not happen on the 7th of October. In fact, people were dancing and singing in the street the moment that they found out. I don't think we've ever had a tragedy this great where people have been celebrating so publicly all over the world. And so I think for that reason, this is probably amongst the top 3 tragedies in the history of the Jewish people. And in a strange way, after the fact, that's a good thing to know. Why is that? Because we know that Jewish history, we have tragedy followed by Geula. Rabbi Akiva, again, is the model of this. 24,000 students perish in a period of 7 weeks. And he picks himself up and he chooses 5 new students to teach. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon Yochai, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Meir. Possibly on Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day of the Omer. That's probably why we celebrate that day. That's the day that he starts, he gets up and he starts again. They write the Mishnah. Because of that, we have the Gemara. Because of that, we have every Jewish book and Judaism basically today. And we see that actually from tragedy in Jewish history comes Geula, comes redemption. And the question we have for Rabbi Akiva is, how did he know? How would he have known the right response to his tragedy? 24,000 students, all his friends, all his students, 25 years of study, everything he lived for, destroyed probably in the Bar Kokhba revolt when they were fighting for Bar Kokhba. How would he have known that this was the right response to start from scratch? And I think that for this he looks into a book. It's a book we all know, with a story about a people who fall to the lowest level of degradation. We are slaves in Egypt, and any moment longer we will also be idol worshippers, at which point we will be at the bottom of the heap of humanity and there will be no way out. And just at the last moment, Hashem takes us from there. 7 weeks later, we find ourselves at Mount Sinai, collecting the Torah, the height of history for mankind, in the history of the world. The only time that Hashem has appeared to a whole people in one moment, which was then. So we went from the bottom to the top in 7 weeks, and Rabbi Akiva understood that this is going to be the pattern of the Jewish people, and we know it's true because we saw after the Shoah, 3 years later, we were setting up the State of Israel. We saw in 1967, my parents told me we were sitting around the kitchen table watching the news on a 4-inch black and white screen, and the BBC was saying there was going to be a second Shoah, and Israel was going to be wiped out. And 6 days later, we took back Jerusalem and rid of the Shoah. And this is the history of the Jewish people. And if we had any doubts that this was Hashem's plan, that this particular tragedy, the greater the tragedy, the greater the Geula, then Hashem has got his fingerprints over the whole story. It happened on Simchat Torah. Simchat Torah is the day we open the Torah afresh, and we read from Riyat Olam, the creation of the world. And Hashem was saying to us, you are now in a new world. And we feel in Israel that our world changed. For you, that we're in a totally different world now. I think you probably feel here in Chicago that your life has changed dramatically in 7th October. And I think non-Jewish people around the world also feel that the world has changed dramatically in 2024. They don't quite know when that started, but the whole world has changed. And Baruch Hashem, because when our tragedy struck, I turned to my kids after the Shloshim, and I said to them, we are now entering a new world. We were in world number 1, 2 parents and 5 kids. We're now in world number 2 with 1 parent and 3 kids. We had 30 days of tears and suffering and mourning, but now we're starting afresh. We'll have memories of world number 1, but it's a completely different world. It'll be a happy world, it'll be a good world, and we're starting from scratch. And Hashem said to Am Yisrael basically the same thing. You're starting from scratch. This is a new start, a reset. And the first 2 words that Hashem says to the Jewish people in the Torah, the portion we read on that morning, is by Hi-or, let there be light. What is the light that he's talking about? It's not the light of the sun, because the sun's created on day 4, and this is day 1. So the light of day 1 is the light of truth, the light that differentiates between good and evil. And that's why Hashem would say Ki Tov or Ki Tov, that it was good, it was very good every day, because the light is shining and differentiating what is good and what is evil. And indeed, on the Sunday morning after October the 7th, we woke up in Israel and we saw on the news people dancing in the streets of London, Paris, and New York, and marching and screaming, "Kill the Jews." And we saw pure evil lit up in a way we've never seen before. And Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. Why is it Baruch Hashem? Because not one anti-Semite was created on October the 7th, 2023. Every anti-Semite who's marching down the streets of Chicago today screaming "Kill the Jews" was also an anti-Semite on the 6th of October. It's just that we couldn't see them. Now we can see them. This is Baruch Hashem, because now we know what to do, and now the non-Jewish people know what to do, and everybody knows what is actually true. And by the way, since we're in Parashiot about Avraham Avinu, I just want to mention that of course, what year was Avraham Avinu born? 1948, according to our count. What age was he when Hashem said, "Lech Lecha"? He was 75. So that was the year 2023. And in 2023, Hashem said to Am Yisrael, "Lech Lecha." Or in other words, we've got us plastering around the streets of Chicago and every other city of the world, "Bring them home," which was Lech Lecha in sort of 2023 speak. So Hashem has given us a number of different clues that something odd is happening here. So the light is shining on truth, on pure evil, but also on pure good. What do I mean by pure good? We've seen miracles that we've never seen before. We saw, a couple of months after the tragedy, we saw a politician stand up in the Turkish parliament, curse Israel for 2 minutes, and drop dead of a heart attack on the spot. Now, this is not normal, because I've never seen anything quite like it before. My parents' generation never saw anything like it. My grandparents never saw anything. If you look on Google, it never happened before. So these things that we're seeing are not normal. We saw the president and the foreign minister of Iran drop out of the sky, and what they described as an act of God, we might call an act of Mossad. Maybe the two are the same. But this, again, doesn't happen. If you look at the history of the world, you type in Google, you never find between any two peoples fighting a war that miraculously two of the top people at one side just happen to fall out of the sky. Does not happen, maybe in the Tanakh, and I'm not such a great expert. So those of you who are experts in Tanakh will know that probably these type of things happen in the Tanakh, but they don't happen in our everyday experience. You'll know that we had 2 evenings of ballistic missiles from Iran, 300 on one night and 250 on the next night. Each missile capable of killing at least 200 people. Baruch Hashem, nobody was hurt and nobody was killed except I think one Arab in Jericho. This is a miracle. This is not normal. There's nothing normal about what happened and what has been happening. Then we saw the attack of the pager-in, as they call it in Israel. This was a miracle. Now, I make it clear this was not a miracle of technology, because technology was pretty old. Technology has been around for a few years. The miracle was, and I explained to my kids, that Israel planned in advance. Because this attack was planned 3 years earlier, and what I say to my kids is that Israelis are the worst at Plan A, but they are the best at Plan B. And they shoot from the hip, and usually it works very well for them. But here was a case where they planned something in advance. This is a miracle of Israeli strategy, and Baruch Hashem. I have neighbors who have friends and friends of friends in Israel, someone in the Air Force. And he told my neighbors, friend, that he said, if you are impressed what Israel did against Hezbollah, he said, just wait what we have planned for Iran. So he said it's 10 times more impressive, and that's why Bibi is holding on with all his strength, because he wants to be the guy in charge when they press the button on that. So we're seeing miracles every day. I mean, other miracles. But just a miracle that, and I'm not entering into American politics because I'm not qualified, but the fact that Biden was declared senile a few weeks before the election, and the emergency appointment of Kamala with no preparation, so she was not qualified to compete against Trump, and we end up now in the news with the most pro-Israel team on the Trump side. I don't know what it is for American economy, politics, but as far as Israel's concerned, Yitz Hashem, it's like you couldn't have planned better timing. If this was going to happen in the history of Israel and America, the timing of this whole war and the whole thing has happened at just the time when parliaments are changing. By the way, 2024 is the year with the most number of elections of countries in the world in the history of mankind. And of course, the next year will show even more elections. And one by one, governments are coming in which are more and more supportive of Israel, and not exclusively in England, but generally speaking, we're seeing this trend. So it's a fascinating wave that's happening, and I think watch this space. So we're in incredible times, and if I had to give a name to the world which we were in before October 7th, and the world that we're in now, the world we were in before October 7th we called the Olam HaGalut, the world of exile, and the world we're in now with this Giloi Shechina, where Hashem is revealed and truth is revealed, I would call it the world of Geula. We're in the Messianic era. And if that sounds extreme, I don't apologize, because the Gemara states this and the Rambam states it as definition of the Messianic era. Shmuel in the Gemara in Shabbat states, there's no difference between this world and the Messianic period except for one thing, which is Shibud Malchut, which means that Israel will not be under existential threat from her enemies around her. And if we were to stop and ask any person in the street of Tel Aviv, Netanya, or Haifa today, what is the purpose of this war? They would say it is to get rid of the existential threat of Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran. And that is by definition the war for Mashiach. Please God, we should take it and see it through to completion, but that is where we are. We're nowhere less than in the war for Mashiach, and that's what I say. On the 7th of October, Mashiach came while we weren't quite expecting him. And what does that mean for us? In other words, we're in, I think we sense that we're in an incredibly important moment in history. And the question is, how do we react to that? What does it mean for us as Jews? So in order to understand, I think we need to look into the Torah, no less than the Torah itself. And there is an answer. Maybe other people have other answers, but there are two tochachos, two passages in the Torah that deal with what will happen if the Jewish people don't follow the rules. There's one in Bechukotai, and there's one in Ki Tavo. And the Ramban explains to us what's going on. So the one in Bechukotai is pretty short, a list of curses that will happen and suffering Jewish people go through. And at the end of it, it's followed by a pretty happy sort of positive section. Ki Tavo is much longer, 3 times longer than in Bechukotai. A whole list of terrible things are going to happen. And at the end of it, there's nothing positive at all. This leads the Ramban to say that the first tochacha in Bechukotai is dealing with the first exile. That's 70 years between the first and second temples. Which is relatively short and ends with the positive note of rebuilding the temple. But the second tochacha, which is Ki Tavo, is the longer one, 2,000 years that we currently just got to the end of, and the end of it will not necessarily be as positive. The Chevlei Mashiach will be a little bit tougher times as we get to rebuilding the third temple. So the question is, what does that mean? So if you look at the next parsha after Ki Tavo, we get to Parshat Nitzavim. Parshat Nitzavim in the 4th Aliyah has what's called the parsha of Tshuva. Why is it called Parshat Tshuva? Because the word shav, which means return, is mentioned 7 times. But it's mentioned in 2 contexts. It's mentioned in the context of Shavta ad Hashem Elokecha, that you will return to God, meaning Tshuva, as we understand it, we will get closer to Hashem, we'll get closer to our Yiddishkeit. And it's used in a second context, which is Shav v'kebetzecha mikol ha'amim, that Hashem will bring us back, return us from exile. So we'll do a double type of teshuvah according to Parshat Nitzavim. At the end of the 2,000-year exile, which we've come to now, we'll both have to make aliyah and do teshuvah as we understand it normally to mean. Why the double language? Let me suggest, how many Jews are there in the world today? 13 million. 13 million, 15 million, okay. How many Jews are there in Israel according to the census that was taken just before Rosh Hashanah? 7.6 million. So if you said there are 15 million Jews and there are now 7.6 million in Israel, it doesn't take a mathematician to work out. We've just passed the tipping point. This is very, very significant. By the way, halakhically, just according to the Ramban, there is no value in Jews living outside of Israel except for practice. And any mitzvah done outside of Israel, but the Ramban is there for practice. According to the Rambam, mitzvahs which depend on the land are rabbinical until such time as which Rov Am Haaretz, the majority of Jews are in Israel, at which point they become Torah mitzvahs. It's not clear whether the Rambam actually holds that Yeshiva Haaretz is a Torah mitzvah anyway, but at least certainly now, I think Kuli Alma, everybody would agree that it's a requirement that every Jew to come and live, come back to Israel. Any case, the Torah understands that when this happens at the end of this second exile, half the Jews are going to be in Israel, half the Jews are going to be outside. So the Torah is saying to us that those half who are outside have to come back, and those who are in Israel have to do tshuva, and probably those when they come back also have to join us and do tshuva as well. So these are the mitzvahs of our generation, specific mitzvahs of our generation. So I want to talk about them individually, as Jerry mentioned. You don't get away without being lectured a little bit about Aliyah. And it's Mizrachi, so I don't have to apologize. So I wanted to say a couple of things about Aliyah. So first of all, I'll take it from a sort of shock perspective, but I think just a factual perspective. People say to me, it's very dangerous, and I'm obviously not a very good advocate to say the opposite. It's very dangerous to come to Israel. And worst of all, our kids are going to go off the derech, because God forbid they'll go to the army and they'll fight and Misirat Nefesh for the people, and then they might not keep kashrut or study Torah as much, which is another discussion. And I want to put that all to bed as follows. In 1948, there were 12 million Jews in the world. Approximately 2 million of them headed off towards Israel over time. And today there are 7.6 million, so the number grew to about 3 or 4 times. What happened to the Jews who didn't go to Israel in 1948? So there were 10 million of them. So the world population between 1948 and today tripled from 2.5 billion to 7.5 billion or 8 billion. And therefore we expected the 10 million Jews to be today 13 million Jews in the diaspora. There aren't, there are 7 million. We lost 23 million Jews in 76 years in the diaspora. That's 4 Holocausts. We had 4 Shoahs taking place in the diaspora in the last 76 years, and we had the Jewish population in Israel growing healthily by 3 to 4 times. So anyone who thinks that it's dangerous to be in Israel, I think has to reconsider, because the facts prove absolutely the opposite. That's number one. But there are positive reasons to be in Israel. I want to tell you a story that a couple of months ago I had 3 yeshiva boys come to visit us for Shabbat from England. And at the beginning of Shabbat on Friday night, I said to them, who of you is planning to make Aliyah at the end of your year in Eretz RZC? So one of them said, my parents are Israeli, I'm probably going to stay. Great. The other 2 said, we're going to go back and study accountancy in England, we're not staying. So I didn't sort of push it, that was that. We had that lovely Shabbat, went to Shlomo Katz's shul Friday night, which I always do when I have guests. I can't do it otherwise because it's very long and I get hungry. But he's wonderful, it's a beautiful place. And at the end of Shabbat, Motzei Shabbat, we daven in the lamppost minyan next to my house. And then I turned to them and I said, I want to show you something. And we walked across the road, and I said, I want to show you this park. And there's like an Israeli flag, and there's a mosaic sign that's dedicated to Lucy Meyer Arena. I said, let me tell you the history of this park. I said, at the Shiva for the girls, a group of 17-year-old boys came to me and said, we'd like to dedicate a park in memory of your wife and daughters. We'll raise the money, we'll do the work, we just want your blessing. So I said, sure. So I saw the flag post go up and the sign, Mizrachi RZC, going up as well. And it's just over the hill, so I didn't have to see what was going on. I was too emotional to go and see it. And then 6 months later, I get a knock on my door. And one of the boys says, okay, I'd like to show you what we've done. He takes me over the hill. and there they paid the council to drill a path across the mountain. They paved it. They planted trees, put in a watering system, lighting system, posters of the girls. They built by hand a wooden pergola from planks of wood. They've built park benches and tables. What they haven't done is absolutely incredible. And I cried. And I cried because we were in Israel from 2004 to 2008 when I was studying to be a rabbi in Hamivtah. I'm living in Efrat. And our plan was to go back to England for Lucy to be a rabbinite and me to accompany her as a rabbi for good. And what we didn't expect was we fell in love with Israel. And if you'd asked Lucy why we fell in love with Israel, she would have said to you, because of the kids. Because the youth in Israel are absolutely incredible. They go to national service, they go to the army. In Efrat, at least, everyone is a madricha in Ezra, in Bnei Akiva. They're constantly looking for people to help and things to do. And we just were absolutely gobsmacked by these youth and the quality of the youth and the dedication to the only thing that they are interested in is how they can best help their people and their country. And Baruch Hashem, I look at my kids, my daughter Karen, who's now 20, spent 2 years in a Beit Yeled, which is an incredible institution, which I don't think exists anywhere else, where they have kids from abused homes living, almost like an orphanage. And she, with another girl, came in as a couple, a religious couple with kids who lived with these 14 boys. And she would come in and wake them up at 6 o'clock in the morning, do breakfast, get them out to school, come back at 1:30, play with them, do their homework, and get to bed like 10 o'clock at night. And they'd have like an hour of meetings at 11 o'clock at night. And this went on for 2 years. And she's actually continued in contact with some of these boys, and she's like a mother to them. And this is something which happens in Israel. And Tali is now in the Air Force, so she's planning missions over Lebanon at one of these Air Force bases. She's 19. And Yehuda, my son, is 15, who's just signed on to an AI course for Shmona Matayim, which is the intelligence, the technologies for Modi'in. And this is something which he's dedicating 15 hours a week of his time for the next 3 years as what they call Mega Machutz, which is an external SAT or whatever you have here. And his friends are working out in order to get into the fighting divisions already in 10th grade. So this is what it's like for the youth in Israel, and this is really what made us fall in love with Israel. And so when I saw the effort these boys had made, I cried because I thought this is exactly why we're here. So I turned to these 3 boys from RZC and I said to them, look, your decision to go back to England in 12 months' time might be the right decision for you now. Okay, I don't dispute it. Maybe it seems to you that that's the right thing for you with your education and your qualification. I said, but let me tell you something. We are Jews. We have this quality which we call hope, tikva. That means that we want something better for our kids. I said, so if you take a different perspective, not the now perspective, but the 20-year perspective, where would you like your kids to be? Here or growing up in England? I said, there's no future in England. I said, the future is here. So you have to make a decision not based on what's right for you now, but what do you think is going to be right for you in 20 years' time? And I said, the only answer is here. So that was that. I'll leave them to make their own decision. But then there's another perspective for American Jews. I just to add this on terms of Aliyah. I had friends in Manhattan who were lovely, lovely, lovely people. But I go and visit them occasionally when I'm in New York, and I feel very sorry for them. I know it's slightly different here in Chicago, but they've got 4 kids. They're paying $50,000 a year for school or for college. They're paying rent of $10,000 a month, whatever mortgage it is, whatever. Kosher food is expensive, it's hugely expensive. Everything, even here, is 50% more than in Israel. And healthcare is $50,000 to $100,000 a year. But in order to basically break even, they have to earn $1 million a year between the two of them. They're working 24/7. The two of them, they look absolutely exhausted whenever I see them. And for what? For what? They could easily come to Israel. The kids would be educated pretty much for free. they'd have much better quality of life. They could work for 8 hours a day maximum and have a normal existence. What's happening in America is that Jews are being priced out of America. And even if it's not, people marching down the streets screaming, "Kill the Jews," I think the economics of bringing up kids in this country is going against you. I think inflation is not going to go down if Trump has his plans. And I think in the short term, I think prices will go up. And I think that, I say to people, my son is in the best yeshiva panimia boarding school in Israel, I think, or certainly one of the top ones in Neve Shmuel in Efrat, which is 5 minutes away, so he comes home far too often. But I pay $5,000 a year for a boarding school in Israel because it's heavily government funded. And I can't understand people in New York who are spending $50,000 a year to send their kids to the local day school when they could send them to Israel and save a fortune and come on many holidays to visit them if they really wanted to. But the kids were very happy not to be visited, I'm sure, and everyone would be much better off. So I think that there's something that's going on here which is out of our control, and I think Hashem is calling us back. In fact, I was in Trafalgar Square about a month after October 7th. It was the first rally for Israel, and all the leaders of Anglo Jewry, the chief rabbi, all the rabbis, all the heads of communities and everything, and everyone was shouting, "Bring them home, bring them." And I'm sitting there thinking, who are we saying it to? I mean, to Bibi? Bibi will do whatever he could to get them home. We're saying it to the British people, they can't do anything anyway. We're saying it to Hamas, they don't care, they're not going to do anything. Who are we saying it to? And then I suddenly realized, I said, Hashem is getting us to sing, bring them home. I say to all the Jewish leaders and parents in England, bring them home. This is what this is about. It's about bringing the Jewish people home now. This is the end of Galut, and this is the time that we should start thinking about coming home. So anyway, that's enough about Aliyah. But there's a second mitzvah, which is tshuva. And actually, I think that tshuva applies to all of us all the time, even in Galut. And maybe it's part of the process of actually getting to the mindset of coming home. And what is teshuva? And why am I talking about teshuva? How much time do I have, Jerry?
Another 10, 15.
Okay, fine. So, why am I talking about teshuva now? We did Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. We finished that. We don't have to worry about it for another year or so. But it's not. Teshuva is something we do every day. What is it? So I read a very inspiring book about 20 years ago by Rabbi Mark Angel called Losing the Rat Race and Winning at Life. And in it he has the following idea, which I think was really powerful, really impacted me as I was a private equity investor at the time looking to quit. He says that each of us has in our head two voices. We have the voice of our soul and we have the voice of others. The voice of our soul, the Kol HaNeshama, is telling us the whole time who we are, what our specific personal task is in life. And then the voice of others is our parents, our kids, our society, our rabbis, our teachers, Facebook, Instagram, social media, the newspapers, who we should be. And what happens, he said, is you start off as a kid with your own voice telling you what you are, and kids are very individual. And at some point, probably in your teens, you start to become very aware of what other people want from you. And then you start conforming. And then you start doing what they want. And actually, it's your Yetzer Hara, because basically, it's much easier to do what other people expect of you, because if you fail, then you did what they wanted. And if you do what you do, then they can't understand why you're doing it. And if you fail, then they're going to laugh at you and tell you, why did you do that in the first place? So our natural inclination is to go after other people. What Rabbi Angel says is, who is the most successful person in life? The person who listens to his own voice, his soul, and ignores the voice of others. The person who listens to his own voice and ignores the voice of others. The problem is we drift after the voice of others, naturally, and so we constantly need to return to the voice of our soul. So teshuva, return, is that process of stopping listening to what other people expect of us and going back to us, becoming the essential me, the true me that I am. So the question then is, what is the true me? I mean, what if my true me said to me this morning, I just sleep in all day, and clearly that would not be the true me. So what is the true me? So Baruch Hashem, Hashem has given us some hints as to what the true me is. Hashem has given us a feeling that we get when we are the true me. Right? When we listen to the voice of the soul, we're on the right track. And that feeling is called simcha. Simcha is sustained happiness. Okay, it's not the happiness we get when someone tells a joke. It's not the happiness we get when we make a snide remark about somebody else in Lashon Hara. It's this long-term happiness that sort of lingers with us and stays inside us. And how do I know that that's connected to following the voice of my soul? Because Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch points out beautifully. He says that the word simcha is linked to the word smicha. Simcha, which happens is linked to the same root as growth, smicha, the tzadi. Because he says in Hebrew roots, you can switch the letter sin and the tzadi, and they basically are connected words. And if you do the same with sason, which is another word for sustainable happiness, so sas becomes sitz, which is sprout. So happiness and sprouting, happiness and growth. And then the word gila, which we are gila, gila, which also means sustained happiness, comes from the same root as gil, which is age, which is also about growth. So all the words for sustained happiness in Hebrew are connected to growth, moving forward. And if you think about it, if you are moving forwards along the line of your soul voice, for example, if you're expanding your Torah knowledge, right, then you get a feeling of simcha, satisfaction, sustained happiness. We celebrate smachot, right? What's smachot? If you see your family growing and moving through certain sort of life stages, a brit milah, simchat bat, bar mitzvah, chatuna, then those are smachot because you realize that your life is moving in a healthy direction. And if you develop in your chesed and you volunteer time and you feel that you're contributing something meaningful, so each week as you do a little bit more, you feel that feeling of sustained happiness, simcha. So the feeling of happiness is one of the greatest indications that we're on the right track. What happens if we go off the track? What do we feel? So clearly we feel a feeling of pain. Pain is the feeling that we're not following the voice of our soul. We've basically gone off the derech for our own purpose, and something is lacking. So I would go as far to say that pain is a blessing. Not what causes the pain, although I think that when we come to Olam Haba, we'll find that that's also true. But once you've had something's happened to you in life and you have a feeling of pain, the pain is a blessing because the pain is that tell you something is missing. You need to change something. You need to adjust. I'll give an example of this. I was a few months ago, the first time I was by myself on Shabbat at home. Usually one of my 3 kids is with me, or 2 or 3 of them. And for one particular week, Karen was in Mizrachi and Tali was in the army and Yehuda was in Pnimiyah, and I was by myself. And it was the first time in 30 years. So I arranged to go out to friends for Friday night and for Shabbos lunch. And then Suda Shlishit, I intentionally left blank because I thought I just want to come home and have a rest. I came back from shul after Mincha and I sat down home and I cried for half an hour. And I couldn't, at the beginning I couldn't understand why I was so sad, and then I said, put this up together, why are you sad? And it might seem obvious why I was sad, but I don't normally cry like that, so there was something specific. And I suddenly realized I'm crying because I'm by myself on Shabbat, and it's the first time in 30 years, but it's not the last time because my kids are more and more out of the house, Baruch Hashem, and this is going to happen more and more, and I don't want to be by myself on Shabbat. So then I thought to myself, so what's the solution? I thought, well, maybe I could get remarried, and even though there wasn't like an instant solution, maybe it will take a number of years, I suddenly had like feeling of simcha, almost like calm, and the pain went away. And I think in life, pain is there in order for us to find a solution to it. It happened on Rosh Hashanah. I forgot to change my alarm clock on my phone. 5:30 in the morning, off goes the alarm clock. I had two choices. I could stay in bed and I could have this chronic noise ringing in my ear, trying to pretend I could just keep it asleep till 8:30. Or I could jump out of bed, go to the Hashkama Minyan, and go to the Rabbi Shir and learn a bit, and then I can make the most of it. So in life, we have a choice. There's a pain, we can choose to keep it going, or we can do something about it. Then I thought to myself, actually, I have a drink of water, and afterwards I said bracha. Borei nefashot rabot v'chesronan, right? Hashem, who creates many souls, and what they lack. I'm thinking to myself, why do I thank Hashem every time I have a glass of water, but what I don't have? It doesn't make any sense. I thank him for what I just had makes sense, right? What I've just received, may the Lord make me truly thankful, to quote another faith. But to thank him for what I didn't have is very odd. And I realize I only do things in life because I lack them. I only eat because I'm hungry. I've got the pain of hunger. I only drink because I've got the pain of thirst. I only work because I have the pain of thinking what it'd be like not to have any money. So everything I do in life is only because I lack something. So the lack is what motivates me to do everything. So I have to thank Hashem, because that's what Hashem's given me, is this feeling that I lack something, because it tells me that I have to do something and I have to change the way I am. So this is the most amazing blessing that Hashem's given us, is pain and simcha. And these tell us if we're on course or not for tshuva. Really, to sum up where we got to, we've had a terrible tragedy. I had a tragedy. We had a terrible tragedy. In fact, just to say this, I was in Baltimore actually a few weeks ago, and I was staying with a very lovely couple, and both of them were psychologists. And one of them, the husband said, tell me, how are you dealing with your pain? He just came out of a session with some of his clients. And I said, look, to be honest, at the beginning, I would be, triggered by something. So I'm triggered all the time by pictures of girls or stories or things that remind me. And I feel like there's like a wave of sadness that's coming towards me. And at the beginning, it would come and it would engulf me and it would knock me over, and that would be it. I'd just be, collapse. And I said, then somehow, over the last year and a half, I learned that when I felt it coming, I could push it away. So he said to me, what gives you the strength to push it away? So I paused and I said, podcasts. He said, what do you mean podcast? I said, well, I travel a lot around Israel at the moment, and I speak a lot in different places around Israel. I drive a lot in my car, and I have Android Auto for the first time in this. It's quite a new car, and there are certain rabbis I like listening to the shirim, and it offers me, the algorithm offers me different shirim, which gives me more choice, and I'm constantly listening shir after shir after shir, and this is like really feeding me with positive inspiration. I said, that's giving me simcha, that's giving my soul this feeling of simcha along that aspect of growth. I said, that strength that's giving me is able to fight off the pain in this other part of my life, which has happened to me. So I said, so this is something which we can all do. We can all find sources of positive energy, and Baruch Hashem, our upbringing. And I thought to myself, I'm a rabbi. 6 years I was a community rabbi, and I would talk about Talmud Torah, Chesed, and mitzvot. And I thought, why would I talk about that? I thought because that's what rabbis talk about, and most rabbis, you think, well, that's what they're paid to do. Those are the three topics which rabbis have to talk about. But then, actually, having been through this, I realized those are the three things that actually help you to deal with anything in life and give you this positive energy to combat any type of challenge in life. So it's not just phrases that rabbis throw out. These are actually amazing things and tools that Jews have in our toolbox in order to grow and to deal with all sorts of things. So we talked about my personal tragedy. We talked about the tragedy of the 7th of October. We talked about where we are and the fact that actually from these tragedies comes a possibility of Geula. That we're in some sort of messianic process here. I think we can all feel that. and it means that we have two major mitzvot that seem to be incumbent upon our generation, which is a turning point in the Jewish people, in the history of the Jewish people, which are Aliyah and Tshuva. Tshuva we can do all the time, Aliyah we only have to do once. And I just want to end with the following words, which is that 2,000 years ago there was a fire in our home. It burned down. Our family dispersed in a panic over all the globe to run to safety. But I'll tell you that our home has been rebuilt with all the latest fire safety devices. It now has sprinklers, alarms, and every modern comfort. It has the biggest heated pool, the Kinneret, and its own spa in the Dead Sea. It has a way of turning our kids into benches through national service and the army. It's a place where every Jew is valued, everyone has a role and a purpose. Our family is mostly all home, and now Hashem is calling us all home. His calls are becoming overwhelming, and soon may become unbearable. The times have changed, and the fire is now raging outside in the streets. So please listen to his call now. Bring them home. Please come home. Okay, we have time for a couple of questions if anyone has any questions.
You're just amazing.
So to answer that question, I'm not amazing, or I'm no more amazing than any of you. In other words, that we all have, every Jew has this, this co-op, and please go to be tested. Yeah.
You mentioned that, now it's kind of a bracha because our enemies are out in the open, but we also have friends who are out in the open, people who are not part of the Jewish people. And I just wondered if you could speak a little bit to people like Douglas Murray and the people who are heroes,
Right.
the righteous Gentiles of today.
Yeah. Look, the purpose of Jews in the world is to bring shalom to the world. Okay. Now, people say to me, what about coming close to God, the Bakers, or whatever. I don't apologize for making that statement. Actually, our purpose is to create shalom. Why? Because the Rambam says it at the end of Hilkos Hanukkah and Megillah. He says the purpose of the Torah was given in order to create peace, as it says, "Kol tibotea shalom, all her paths are peace," which is a quote from Mishlei written by King Solomon. So King Solomon says that all her paths are peace, everything is about shalom, and Rambam says that is the purpose of the whole Torah, is to bring shalom. So we are all goyim in terms of bringing shalom. And if you look at what Israel is doing now, in other words, I think that those who, maybe anyone was at Sirius Shir last night, but I said so many words, that Jewish people have brought shalom to the world, right? Every civilized nation, America, Europe, West, even China and other countries, they're civilized because of us. Okay, all the great things in civilization came from us. Okay, the most important things: family life, concept of a wedding, concept of community. A shul is based on the Mishkan. The church and the mosque are based on the shul. Community centers are based on our school. Public schooling was invented by Rabbi Gamliel 1,500 years ago. It came to America, Britain, and other places about 100, 200 years ago. Anything good in society, democracy, hope, freedom, rights, human rights, everything came from us. So we did, we can give ourselves a pat on the back and the diaspora for doing amazing things and spreading these things, and that presumably is why we were dispersed around the world for 2,000 years. But the task has changed, and the task, I think we can see now, it's quite clear. The task is not so much these things which are individual mitzvahs and individual inspiration that we have to give to the people, but actually it's now national, it's on a national level. The world forgot that actually letting in terrorists into your country is not a good idea. And they opened the borders and let these people stream in, and people shouting death to America, and death to England, and death to France, and obviously death to Israel. And Israel is the first country to go out and say, you have a choice. Either you support us, in which case, and you keep the Sheva Mitzvot B'nai Noach, and you don't kill, and you take to court anyone who tries to kill anyone, or you get out of here. We don't want you. So that's it. So Israel, that's what Israel's doing. That's the policy at the moment. And you know what? We've inspired every country in Europe and America now to do the same thing. And this is waking up the world. And this could not have happened with a bunch of Jews, Jewish accountants, doctors, and lawyers, which we're very proud of, in America or London or in Paris. This had to happen with the IDF in Israel. So the major changes in terms of world peace, in terms of shalom, Douglas Murray says this, but it's pshat. Islam, I used to think salam was peace, but apparently Islam means submission. A Muslim woman submits to her husband. Her husband submits to the terrorist government of their country, and certainly in the Arab countries. And those country leaders submit to Iran, which is the head of all the terrorism. When we attack Iran, and I guess we'll have to wait until January until that happens. When we attack Iran, the potential here is the liberation of all these women, hundreds of millions of Arab women who could be liberated. And we all know that 70 years ago they were all walking around in bikinis, and now they walk around in yashmaks. I don't think they want to be walking in yashmaks. So the moment they're liberated, the husbands will be forced to be liberated. The governments, everything can reverse. So we're in this process where Baruch Hashem, we could absolutely transform the Middle East, and we're transforming the Western world because they're also saying enough is enough. You want to be a Muslim citizen or any type of citizen, great, we love you. But you have to abide by these rules, which is, I love America. I want to work. I want to, be a good citizen. If you don't want to go by that, then you get the hell out of here. So I think that Jews are all a goyim. I think the greatest light unto the nations is happening in Israel at the moment. And I take the Ramban, who says that Judaism outside of Israel is only for practice, to say that your kids and your grandchildren, yourself, are all completely qualified to do this. Right? There's no difference between a Jew in America and a Jew in Israel, except the location. Every single one of your children and grandchildren is totally qualified to do exactly what my kids are doing or my neighbors' kids are doing, but they just have to come to Israel and do it. And more than that, there are many things that you're doing here which we don't do in Israel, and we desperately need you. I was talking to somebody today or yesterday about this, that the communities I've been to and I've seen here are incredible. And if you could just, cut and paste, take them from here and bring them to Ra'anana and to Jerusalem and to Beit Shemesh, you could transform, and Tel Aviv, you could transform the whole of Israel. And that's what Israel's lacking, is you.
Rabbi, you found yourself sort of in the middle of culture wars in October, so yourself in that position, and those culture wars kind of took a break for a few months, but now it seems that they're coming back again. And I just want to points on what your involvement, and you're the voice of reason. Are there other voices like yours?
So first of all, I think first of all, there is the left in Israel has pretty much disappeared. Okay, I understand people marching for hostages, and please God, they should be released soon. And people are emotional about it. Everybody agrees we have to win this war. So we've come, very much into alignment. On the 5th of October, 2023, I happened to run a service at Dizengoff, Kikkar Dizengoff, after what had happened on Yom Kippur, which had been broken up, and I felt very strongly. So we had a service with a mechitza, which was against the rules, etc., on purpose. And you know what? It was extremely successful in the sense that I had lots of not yet religious Tel Avivians coming to me, shaking a lulav. They said, Rabbi, it's the first time we've ever shaken a lulav in our lives. And they were tremendously supportive. And then we had 5 people came from all over Israel, because there was one troublemaker who came along. She invited her friends. And I know they came from all over Israel, because it took an hour and a half, and some of them arrived literally as we were saying the last Kaddish. 5 of them, and they started being disruptive, and one of them pushed me slightly out of the way. There was a picture of me then in the newspaper on the 6th of October, and that was like headline news the day before Simchat Torah. But that was that. Anyway, then we get to this Simchat Torah, and we get to this Sukkot and Yom Kippur, and there are rabbis in America. A rabbi in America, I won't mention his name, contacted me very rudely, emailed me, and then copied in a load of other rabbis that he thought were prominent in Israel, saying, I've heard that some rabbis, right-wing rabbis, are planning to arrange a service in Tel Aviv on Yom Kippur with a mechitza. That would be divisive, especially at a time of war. Please tell me that you're going to write an article to condemn anyone who would do that. So first of all, I took offense that he was accusing me. And I didn't even think, I wasn't actually planning to go. And secondly, I thought to myself, who is this guy? I mean, some rabbi in America. I said, so my first response was, if you want to bring Geulah, please bring yourself and your community to Israel. That's step number one. Then I said number two, I said, if you want to write this, I said, please write to the mayor of Tel Aviv and say that, you hear that people would like to have services in Tel Aviv. And if you plan to break it up, then please don't do that because that will be divisive, especially at the time of war. But anyway, as it happens, the Bagatz, the Supreme Court, I wrote an article about this after what happened, and I condemned the Supreme Court, I condemned the mayor of Tel Aviv for being anti my religious rights, for banning religious Jewish practice in the streets of Tel Aviv. And Baruch Hashem, this year the Bagatz came out with a ruling that it was against Israeli law to ban Jewish prayer, even Jewish prayer, in the streets of Tel Aviv. And Baruch Hashem, there were a number of minyanim that went ahead, which you didn't hear about because it's not very newsworthy, but there were thousands of people praying outside Yom Kippur and on Sukkot, and there's now no problem at all. So I think that what happens is, as always, is the stories that you get are the ones that troublemakers like to sort of focus you on. Baruch Hashem, there's never been a greater time of Achdut in Am Yisrael, and that will only get stronger as we go forward. The next.